Hello and welcome back, everyone. Bit of an unintended hiatus for a while, but we're back and we're ready to finish Disco Elysium. And what a ride it's been, huh? Last time, our confrontation with the killer got a confession, evidence for more crime, and surprisingly, the appearance of a massive cryptid. I mean, I know it's not a cryptid if it's proven to exist, but the point is the Insulindian phasmid was real all along. But why is it here? And what relevance might it have to our investigation? Let's do what we do best and find out. Right, while this thing blends in neatly with the reeds, you may recall that our killer seemingly can't see it at all. Fortunately, Kim does, so we're not completely losing it. What do we even do with this thing? Let's put our gun away and take a closer look. Even if it's dangerous, I don't think that'll be much help. Instead, let's grab the ledger. I have a feeling this is going to be Inland Empire's big moment. Well, here we go. God damn, it's massive. Suggestion says it's looking for us with its antenna. And it's making those weird clicks and hisses we're hearing.
It is.
Kim reaches for something in his jacket. Oh right, the camera. Good thinking.
We need a photo. No one will believe us.
You can say that again. However, there's a subtle motion that ripples through the creature. Half-Light interprets. It's a fear response. It's afraid of us.
I won't be one of those fools who didn't take a picture.
Easy, partner. I want it on film too, but we need to be careful here. We did get the pheromone from Morel. Time to try it.
I don't think the pheromone will do anything.
Since we heard the full story from Lena, this electrochemistry check is all but guaranteed. But let's try saying something first. It's so thin and light. I just say hey to it. Empathy still feels the sadness from the dream. If not for the music, this would be kind of terrifying, but it's more curious than intimidating. Let's get closer. Easy, big fella. Easy now. The clicks sound like laughter to empathy. By contrast, we're sweating buckets, our scent heavy in the air. Encyclopedia sees what looks like the creature inhaling. It's smelling us. We're right up on it. This thing towers over us. Small wonder the thing camouflages so well on the reeds. It's practically made of them. We raise our hand and its eyes pick up the motion, tracking the hand, studying us. Everything goes quiet. Half-Light tells us to stop. Alright, hand back down. No sudden movements. Hello. I'm Harry. I don't really know who I am. It makes no noise, but there's some kind of foam coming from its mouth. What is it doing? We barely pick up the scent, like burnt roses. Is it inviting us to smell it in return? Kim warns that the foam might be poisonous. An Inland Empire check pops up, also guaranteed. Note that the bonuses include when we spoke to the dead man. We easily pass, and it speaks to us at last. Just like with the body, it's a conversation within ourselves, giving voice to things we believe and can intuit. The power of our imagination. I tell it I'm ill, and there's so many it's hard to know where to begin. Constant input in the heart. The phasmid is very different. It has states, not emotions. It knows excitement, but just from material things. For it, existence is a series of half-lit images, what it describes as darkness being intruded upon. It talks of shapes of plants and animals, internal sensations, things it recognizes but doesn't understand. It's everything that we're not, a being that senses much but feels very little. We're both strange to each other. To us, it's a massive stick bug. To it, we're a shadow with a strange smell. It finds our existence, our capacity for thought and memory, to be hellish, an unbroken string of awareness, eternal damnation. Well, you're not far from the truth, friend. The human mind is a hell of a thing to live with. But I'm trying. It's a work in progress. It senses the hard road ahead of us, is in awe of us. When we're tired, when it spins out of control, it's cheering us on. Or maybe it's just our own mind. It's nice to have someone in our corner. No, we always did have someone backing us, didn't we? Volition was there, holding us together. The others, too. Lieutenant W. Friteur Harrier Dubois. I'm a detective. I exist. We're both detectives in our own way. I was born to find the killer. The phasmid warns us he's falling apart, and it seems to blame itself for his crumbling mental state. It is meant to keep them from noticing me, but he has looked at me for too long, and I'm destroying him. When we spoke to Morell, he hypothesized the creature had some kind of evolutionary defense against detection. In this conversation, the detective is inferring its presence actually destroys the mind somehow, over the long term, and that would explain why we can see it, but Yosef can't. Reaction speed singles out the fact that it eats reeds, even though it looks like them. Begs the question of whether it's ever eaten one of its own. And then it says it cloned itself, ate its offspring on accident. Morell also mentioned that it may be capable of self-reproduction. However this thing works, it's native to the Isola, and has been hiding in plain sight for centuries. Half-Light suggests some dangerous biochemistry as part of its camouflage. A pheromone, or something perhaps. It worked against settlers and soldiers, communists and capitalists alike. It's hidden through whole ages of human society. Until now. What do you even say to that, except... wow. And here we have it in plain text. A neurodegenerative alamone. A defensive chemical only harmful over prolonged exposure, like the deserter might be experiencing. And here's one more bombshell. The Pale might be man-made. Again, some of this must be Harry connecting more dots. We've had him think in depth on the Pale through Motorway South. But the phasmid claims that its advent coincides with the arrival of the human mind. And we do know that it's rarefied human history. Remember the Pale driver experiencing memories that aren't hers. It calls us a violent and irrepressible miracle, and suggests that this phenomenon will eventually erase everything. It seems afraid of us once more, but for a different reason, as if it could all disappear in the blink of an eye, like we could just forget reality itself. I've already forgotten everything once. Who's to say it can't happen again? Just to be sure, I asked Kim if I'm having some kind of seizure, and thankfully we are not. Maybe we are having some kind of vision, or maybe we're just finally cracking. I don't even know anymore. But this thing is real, and it changes a lot about what we thought was real. I guess that's it then. Thank you for speaking with me. I do have one more thought to share. You are strange to me, a rare and special being, and the kindest creature I've ever met. Even now, it cheers for us, wants us to turn away from her, from the ruin. It's time to move forward again. Alright, Kim. Let's prove this thing exists. There it is. We got it. Son of a bitch, we got it. Never thought I'd say this about giant stick creature, but there's an odd beauty to this picture. We're just a shadow of a person before it. We reach out and touch one of its whiskers, just barely. It curls back in response. Something surges through us, a strange enjoyment. The realization that it truly exists, that you can just reach out and touch it. Well, it's a special moment of cross-species understanding. Let's not lick the bug juice, yeah? Its forearm is light to the touch. It would have to be to move the way it does. Reaction speed warns us to be careful, gentle. It seems to shudder as we reach higher, processing the sensation. VC envisions some kind of countdown, the signal from our touch overwhelming. Empathy thinks we overloaded the poor thing. Sorry, pal. Lot to grapple with on our end, too. And I think we've gotten all we can from it. Time to say goodbye. There it goes. Light as a feather. Then perception sees something where it stood. Some things bobbing up and down in the reeds. Items. Kim's is as amazed as we are. That was an experience, to put it mildly. His nest seems to be in the reeds. Interesting. Yosef is barely coherent. That thing did have some kind of effect on him. We need to check on him, but first let's see what we got here. A helmet. The one Kuno must have kicked into the water. And a scope. Has to be the one Yosef used to take the shot. What the hell are these doing here? Huh. Almost looks like a bug's head, doesn't it? Can't inspect it. Same with the scope. And the rifle. But it does seem like it fit right on the triangong, though. Did it collect these things? Why? Let's see what he has to say now.
What is it? What do you want from me? I can't go.
Composure can tell something's off with him, more than before. It's like he's gone into shock or something from seeing it and yet not seeing it. Fear and longing. Electrochemistry senses addiction. It's real, isn't it? The psychoactive properties of the phasmid. On the upside, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Kim seems to think he pretty much can't move right now. Yeah, he needs medical attention. We need him alive. Here you can see how we're connecting dots that Kim didn't at first. He thought it was old age and shock, but composure says all the odd details of our analysis make more sense. From the phasmid's conversation, it told us it was harmful to the man's presence, that the chemicals it uses to camouflage itself damage the mind with long-term exposure. Reported sightings are brief, the witnesses unaffected, and usually not credible. I'm not sure that makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, but this is Disco Elysium we're talking about. Yeah, this man's gone, at least for the moment. He wasn't before, though. He was like a human sine wave, swinging wildly between emotional states, but he was lucid. And just before the phasmid appeared, he had some kind of breakdown, when it sunk in that he was under arrest. If he's deflated now that it's gone, then it's like the crash after a high. It may have also affected him hormonally. He was obsessed with some woman he'd never met. Then again, he's been living like this since he was 16. At best, I think the phasmid is a contributing factor in his behavior. After a bit of internal debate, I decided against telling Kim about that conversation. Figured this whole thing's been weird enough. He wasn't even taking notes through all that. Yeah, without the photo, we'd just sound crazy talking about this. No reaction to the helmet. Not even anger. The last embers have gone out. The war is over. The tide must have brought it here, but who moved it? A brief recognition of the scope, but it doesn't last. He looks away, back to the reeds. This he wouldn't have left there. The phasmid must have carried it over. Empathy says we've gotten everything we can out of him. It's time to go. Yeah. His fighting days are long gone. Let's go get some help. Like Kim says, we shouldn't have to worry about him going anywhere. We're gonna have one hell of a report to make about all this. Right, back to the boat. We need to head back to town. And that appears to be our last objective, so we're not far from the credits rolling. You note it doesn't say anything about calling the station or anything. Not even sure we can, with Everard still jamming the radio. Thinking on the killer for a second, I'm a little surprised that this directly related to the revolution. The whole capitalism versus communism thing has been the elephant in the room everywhere you go, but until now mostly his backstory. The idea that the killer is a surviving partisan who actively yet inadvertently touched off a powder keg, it's an interesting twist, and I sort of get what they're going for here. Yeah, not happening. Alas, the magazine pile's secrets will stay secret. But getting back to the case, it reminds me of The Big Lebowski, where the crime, some rich guy's trophy wife seemingly being kidnapped, isn't what you think it is, and everyone the dude meets has varying degrees of involvement. Some know what's going on, others are opportunists, and some have no actual relevance to the plot. That said, I think the structuring of this game is weaker. I'll explain more in a bit, but finding the real killer feels like it should be happening at about the 2/3 mark, at which point it's become far more than just a murder case. Instead, we're very close to wrapping things up, and it does feel kind of abrupt. No sad FM for the ride back. God, that was a cool scene. Perception hears people talking. Someone's waiting for us. Esprit de Corps says it's 2 men and a woman in the village, watching us sail in. Gotta be the cops that have been shadowing us. Hey, Lillian. We're back, and boy do we got a story for you. Huh, she's gone. Ah, there they are.
Look what the tide brought in. Harry, you're bleeding all over the place. You're half dead.
Rhetoric couldn't care less about this guy right now. VC recognizes him, the guy with the wig and sunglasses.
That's right, and you're bleeding.
Hello, I'm Trent Heidelstein. I believe we've met on several occasions.
I'm your goddamn partner, Jean-Vic Mar, and this is your special task force, or what's left of it. Special Consultant Trent Heidelstein, Patrol Officer Judith Minot.
Hi.
We have come to scrape what's left of you off the pavement.
Lieutenant Kim Kisuragi, Precinct 57. We've just come from the island, where our investigation led us.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be awkward.
We might need your help with something later. But this is clearly a departmental matter, so I'm going to leave you to discuss it among yourselves.
That's fair. It's our mess.
It's good to meet you, Lieutenant Kitsuragi.
We are not forgetting about anything. Look at you.
Harry, we want to help you. Trant, I believe this is where you come in.
Suggestion's not happy that we thought of her as the horse-faced woman. Hey, don't look at me, man. I'm just clicking text.
I don't quite know what I'm doing here. I was asked to participate as an expert. I think I need to manage your expectations a little. I'm at best an enthusiast in cognitive science. My background is in something else entirely. I engage in neurology on a merely theoretical level. In fact, I should probably get going.
No, Trant, it's too late. You're part of this shit now. What have you got to say for yourself, shit kid?
Okay, there's a lot going on here. As they say, they're a squad from the 41st, and we seem to have ditched them during or before this case, opting to drink ourselves to death instead. We made a right mess of things, and it was pure luck there was any evidence left to find. Minot says people around here saw us too, and Vicmar says she means our hobo friends. None of this is a good look for a cop, especially a supposed superstar detective. His whole thing with the wig was to see for himself how bad it was, and lo and behold, it was really, really bad. Rhetoric says he employed the awesome power of sarcasm. Now granted, I've had this coming since the word go, but that's probably not the best way to handle someone with literal memory loss. The way he tells it, we told them to fuck off, so he wasn't in the best of moods to begin with. Well, sorry about the whole not recognizing you thing. Of the two, Minot seems more reasonable, but I suspect none of this behavior comes as much of a surprise to them. Worried, yes, but not surprised. Yeah, so the guy going on about history and climbing sticks is exactly the eccentric nerdlinger he acted like. He just omitted the fact that he's a cop. And for some dumb reason, he brought his kid to the neighborhood of an ongoing murder investigation. He says his interest in the Feld building was legit. Empathy says he was genuinely worried about us, but he also wanted to see the place, which I remind you was the hideout of a fugitive suspect with a death ray. I know I'm hardly one to throw stones here, but that's some Father of the Year material right there. Anyway, given our condition, he's the closest thing they have to a psychiatrist. We were all part of a special task force, the Major Crimes Unit. Vicmar was our partner and co-lead of the division. He mentions a Guillaume Bevy, a police reporter who was part of the unit. Shockingly, the detective formerly known as Hobocop was not a terribly effective leader, and Bevy wound up leaving. In fact, what you see here is all that's left. Logic wonders if Bevy is blonde and wears sunglasses. And as fate would have it, he does. Vicmar was impersonating him. Thought it'd be a cute little joke for a guy claiming to have amnesia. The fact that we really did have amnesia sort of took the fun out of it. Now, I'll grant, all this is a pretty bad look for us. But they did kinda sorta leave us to face a death squad, you know? The reason we're bleeding all over the place. Apparently our meltdown began by telling our squad that they're cramping our style, and it's hard to tell whether Harry was just in asshole superstar mode or he'd already committed to trying to kill himself. Whatever the case, they didn't really mean for us to face the mercenaries alone, and apparently didn't even know it was happening. That's actually believable, given that the Union was willing to suppress calls about the shootout. Anyway, now would be a good time to be sorry, cop, though it sounds like Vicmar's heard that all before, too. Time for a psych eval. We can walk, talk, argue, and drive a boat, but the amnesia is very real and thorough. Rhetoric helps out. Episodic is about what we've done. Semantic is the definitions of basic terms. All this is from the station call a ways back, and it makes me wonder if we could avoid doing that, how well we could hide our amnesia until we'd recovered enough information to fake it. Trant wants to hear our thoughts first, whether it's neurological, psychological, or for some reason, socioeconomic, as in somehow I got so poor I lost my memory. It seems there's a far-fetched body of literature on the subject, veiled critiques on capitalism. I'm sure it doesn't help, but I think we've established our problems are a little more personal than that. From what we've learned of him, Harry is a sad, broken mess of a man, and his self-destruction was an attempt to escape that sadness once and for all. It was a defense mechanism that pointed to suicide. While there are any number of contributing factors, I don't think you need to get too abstract to figure this one out. Vicamar isn't buying it. We're all sad, broken messes. We don't all drink until we forget everything. Then Minot drops this one on us. All this has happened before, including the amnesia. Twice now, both related to our old cases. Reaction speed recognizes them. The unsolvable case and the next world mural. Half-Light says those were hard on us. And we talked about the mural way back in episode 3. Whether those cases themselves prompted the descent or were merely accelerants is hard to say. Trant then presents a peculiar theory, that our extreme behavior is, in fact, normal for the world around us. That after a long career as a cop, we've become hypersensitive to an unending stream of social and historical input, and it's not so strange for someone to just want it to stop. I think he has odd digressions about as much as Harry himself, just with a fraction of the drug use. Jean is not impressed, and mostly just wants to know if we need to be institutionalized. Fortunately, Trant seems to think we're good to work, if not quite in a leadership role. That seems fair. We've been trying to clean up our act, and I'd say what we've learned about the case should help us keep our job. Ooh, staring contest. I'm good at those. Come at me, Lieutenant Buzzkill. I've got the expression on my side. Oh, did we have to bring up the car? That was a whole week ago. Some fun options in this, but drunk driving, destruction of property, reckless endangerment, that's just another day at the office for Tequila Sunset. Except no substitutes. Apparently there is a thought that lets you do finger guns to people, and goddamn I'm kicking myself for not finding it. So yeah, chased off our squad, lost our mind, wrecked our car, and that was how the game started. That we made it this far is a small miracle. He wants to see our badge, but come on, you see this cool armor I'm wearing? I'm an adventurer cop now. I'm the tank, Gibbs the DPS. We're not armor cops. Okay, fine, I'll show you my badge. Yeah, slipped out of my hand. Can't look any worse in front of the other cops. Come on! Oh yeah! Tequila Sunset is the best at recovering from his fuck-ups. Show my badge, now my gun. I could just show him the 9mm I'm expected to have, but let's wow him with the rifle instead. He is not in fact wowed by the rifle. Tough crowd today, not feeling very disco right now. He calls us a drunk, but come on, the beer I drank before a tense interrogation of a suspect is long since worn off by now. Yeah, no sense hiding it. The game coached me into doing it through experience and stat buffs, and I fell right into it. Now, that's actually quite clever. Drinking is the easy thing to do mechanically, but in-universe it's a terrible idea for the character. That said, he's trying to pair the drinking with letting Clausier go, and that's a little more complicated. Lot of options here, all of them true to a point. Except this last one. I suspect they will not react well to it. She did pull a fast one on us, but she was also innocent of the killing. The evidence didn't really point towards her, and she even gave us a clue that led to the island. Like I said, complicated. He's not happy about letting Ruby go either, to say nothing of doing everyone Claire's bidding. Thankfully, he doesn't know it was to get our gun back. But all this is peanuts compared to 8 people dying, and here's where this guy can fuck right off with his outrage. Yeah, Kim can't hold his tongue on this. This is on Wild Pines for hiring a bunch of unstable mercenaries to play Strikebreaker, with a side order of the Union desecrating a body and provoking his squad mates. We did the best we could given the fucked up circumstances, and it's because of our intervention that more people didn't die. We did what cops are supposed to do in that kind of situation. So where the hell were you? That seems to take the anger out of him for the moment. But now it's time for Kim to render his judgment, since he's been with us the whole time. And this is where our conduct really starts to matter. For starters, it's a little hard not to notice the drinking on the job. Jean just loves hearing that. Our sorry cop tendencies kick in even when they really shouldn't, though I'd argue Harry has a lot to be sorry for. Stranger still is that our extreme behavior is a weird fit for our politics. We lean moralist, but try to avoid engaging politically with others. It just rarely seems like a good idea. And yet, having witnessed the human can opener at work, Kim is thoroughly impressed. We talk circles around people, track like a bloodhound, and follow leads to the bitter end. This mania might be problematic in itself, but the fact is we solved the case. Confession, a murder weapon, the killer, his motive. Not to mention the killer might have done the Union's dirty work. Oh, and we discovered the god-for-damned Insulindian Phasmid. Been a busy week, y'all. Yeah, show him the picture, Kim. I like that the text recognizes it's raining. That might be scripted. No need for words. Just let him drink it in. He asked if it's connected to the case. There's no way he'd believe me without Kim here. Certainly not without the picture. But it's pretty likely when he wasn't murdering people or being mad at the world, Yosef was high off his balls on bug drugs, whether he knew it or not. There's a sentence I didn't think I'd be reading at the end of this. I like this line. This is a very, very sad man who has just seen something that made him forget his sadness. Even in this world, there's still room for wonder, for the fantastical. But now it's time to explain why we should get to keep our job, and boy do we have a lot to talk about. Let's start with the strongest argument, the killer's motive. We mentioned his name, and Trent says it's a revolutionary metronym. This gets into cultural baggage with not subtle parallels to Russian and Eastern European names, but the short of it is revolutionaries often took their mother's name instead of their father's. Lilyanovich means Yosef's mother was named Lillian. The custom ended with the revolution. All this means is his name alone is evidence that the story is true, that it is something a soldier of the commune would call themselves. Yeah, logic says he found this detail convincing. But back to the motive. All signs point to jealousy. He developed what Kim calls a psychosexual fixation on Clausier, and he saw the man as an enemy soldier thanks to his background and trauma from the war. Ballistics in the bullet matched the gun we found in his possession, and the killer confessed to his arresting officers. It's as clean as it gets, and it sure as hell wasn't easy, even if we only made it harder on ourselves. Vikmar knows we can pull ourselves together and work. The problem is it never seems to stick. He can still smell the alcohol on us. Volition tells us to chin up. Good news is good news. Keep laying it on them. Since the Phasmid may be related, we should tell them what we know about it. We mentioned that it may have been female, and appeared to be nesting on the island, which it must have been for Yosef to be so affected by it. It had gathered items in his nest, including the scope the killer used. That makes him think it may have been male, and at this point we have no idea. It would also need to be fairly strong, for an insect, to move a helmet and other items with those narrow limbs. We bring up the possibility of self-reproduction, and admittedly it's a combination of observation and weird internal deductions, though if it does, he says it wouldn't matter if it was male or female. Its magpie-like behavior would predate the evolutionary mutation. Point is, we're looking at a complex, delicate creature and a possible conservation effort now that we know it exists. Moreover, the chemical it may emit can stimulate the nervous system. Typically not a human's, but it sure would explain why Yosef seems so out of it at the end. Almost certainly this is how the creature has stayed hidden all this time. We don't really need to connect this to the case. We've got enough of a motive as it is. I doubt this kind of speculation would hold up in court anyway. Still, the more we know about this, the more we'll have to say when it comes up. While the finding of the phasmid is ultimately a separate matter, it's still a pretty big feather in our cap. It's nice to have something to report besides another murder case. As he says, it's science, news, human interest. The photo is a real difference maker. That's something we can publish. Think we've got enough to keep our job, but we should definitely bring up Yosef's possible other murders, namely the former head of the Union. Kim's wary of discussing that out in the open, and reaction speed senses we're being watched. Still, you all know how big that could be. The Clare brothers run this part of town. Trent wants nothing to do with this, and logic says that's a sign of how good it is. Having your predecessor murdered is the kind of political motive we thought this murder was about. Might as well mention the other dead man we found, the guy on the boardwalk. Minot says others from the 41st took care of the body and made arrangements with the family. Most police work isn't glamorous, but stuff like this has to be done, and we were there to do it. It matters. At this point, I feel like we've run out of things worth mentioning. I suspect the nightclub and the Doom commercial area will just annoy him, and bringing up Kuno's meth stash is met with a shrug. He's weirdly tolerant of drug use, more so than he is of alcohol. It's been that big a problem with Harry, apparently. Yeah, let's wrap this up. While he's not happy to take us back, we cracked the case and made some big discoveries along the way. Not bad for a week's work that started with a naked amnesiac passed out in a trashed hotel room, and good enough that they're willing to put up with us again. Hooray! We won policing. But that still leaves us with questions about ourselves. Let's start from the top. Who are we? The answer is as mundane as it gets. We were a gym teacher in Koran who decided one day he was going to be a cop. While I'm slightly taken aback by Kim mentioning bicep girth, the fact is it explains a lot. We spent a week solid running everywhere, jumping, climbing, breaking into things. Our dance number included some jump aerobics. Harry's let himself go, but there is fitness in his past. Bits of the past start to fill in. Encyclopedia remembering to walk to the school gym every morning. Kim also points out that we inexplicably get along well with the youth, knowing how to talk to the likes of Kuno, Andre, Estelle. Oh yeah, he's having a blast with this information. And for the sound of it, it was all because of her, taking a job we thought was cool and dangerous. Inland Empire remembers now, her walk to school while she left for the academy. Happier times. So how exactly did we get from there to this? We understand some of this already, and at last we get a name. Dora Engerland. Reaction speed notices the difference in last name. She's an ex, but not an ex-wife. Vicamar says nobody gets married in Revachol anymore, and all this was 6 years ago. Volition asks the million real question. What the hell is wrong with us if 6 years on we're still not over the heartbreak? We weren't even married and it still broke us in half. When we ask about her, Vicamar helpfully describes her as incredibly bangable. To elaborate, she was beautiful and rich, bourgeois. Maybe that was it. We couldn't believe our luck and things just got bad over time. It was love at first sight, something right out of the movies. And a happy ending is all about when you decide to roll the credits. She taught at the academy. She was middle class, we were working class. Maybe it was just bound to fall apart eventually. We need real help to get over this. More than we're gonna find yammering in a dingy fishing village. Right. As long as we got the professional cops here, I ask if I'm working for La Puta Madre, and get a simple no as the answer. The reason is obvious. We're unstable to the point of several attempted suicides. Unlike the police, the mob has standards. Guess you were right there, Volition. That's a load off. As for Precinct 41, he calls us the Bloody Murder Station. Kim, however, has stuck up for the 41st before, especially Captain Price. We're understaffed for Jamrock and just doing what we can. Minot mentions Mac Torson and Chester McLean. We heard them on the radio when we called for help on day one. Notably, Torson had glued his eyelids shut, and gives you some idea of the quality of the people currently holding down the fort. Said fort consists of losers and clock punchers, according to Vicamar, the sordid riffraff that we try to organize as a task force. As for Price, he's a big name for a reason. He's the son of one of the RCM's founders. Kim deeply respects him. Esprit de Corps has a vision of him behind a desk, talking with Nick Gottlieb, the team's medic. They speak of change, tension, events of April, and blood on the streets in May. And speaking of blood, turns out the 41st did raid the church up the coast, which understandably the locals were a little cross about. All he'll say is that our enemies were hiding out there. I suspect it was more than just some punks in the drug lab or whatever, maybe related to that tension in the streets. Perception thinks it matters that we're still within earshot of Union headquarters. Interesting. Jamrock is basically a ghetto, the largest in Revachol, and our station somehow has to cover it all. Kim thinks the bad press will blow over, that they're lucky to have us, and vice versa. Not so sure about that, partner, but thanks. In all this, we forgot about Lena and Morel. We have to tell them about the Phasmid. I think it would have appeared regardless, but we'd be utterly lost without their information. If anybody deserves to know, it's them. Yeah, suggestion gets it. She'll do cartwheels in her chair. But alas, it's not all good times. Kim's got to go back to his station and write this up, and he's got some talking to do with his own captain. As he says, a small war nearly broke out over a random shooting. Something is happening, and whatever it is, the RCM needs to be ready for it, which gives us an opportunity that I cannot resist. Kim, old buddy, old pal, how'd you like to make life a little harder for yourself? So happens our task force has a few openings. Oh, you know he wants to. Trust me, man, if you can keep up with Hobocop, then you're the kind of weirdo we're looking for. Vicamar is on board. Kim's known and respected on our end as well. He's got work to tie up with his precinct, but he thinks Jamrock's going to be central to whatever's coming. And we've got a lot of work for a lieutenant hungry for it. Ah, there's that smile. I knew it. We got our buddy cop duo for the sequel, ladies and gentlemen. Well then, should we hit the road? Shivers gets a feel for the city, one last time. From Main Street to Grand Couronne, from the 41st to Boogie Street, our home. Weird and broken and just a little bit beautiful. Esprit de Corps reads off a list of familiar names. Dubois? Of course. Gottlieb says we're unstable. Price is counting on it. We'll pull through, and we'll side with the RCM when we do. Time to go to work, Harry. Well, guess that's that then. Now, I had kind of an unplanned delay with this for several reasons. Yes, thank you, Inner Dialogue. Point is, I've had time to digest the ending since I first saw it, but even knowing that's where the game stops, it still feels rather sudden. Like, there are plot hooks for a sequel and unresolved story threads, and obviously the noir overtone of the game means that some larger things are going to stay unresolved. The point of the game is you're not the linchpin around which the world moves, you're a specific person with a specific job to do. But there are things I think the game could have wrapped up without feeling too conventional. I want to go into this in more detail in a separate video, there'd be a lot to outline. Oh, sound credits. I hadn't heard of British Sea Power before this, but they did some amazing work on the soundtrack. Very atmospheric and memorable. Julian Champenois as Kim. Hats off to you, dude. You nailed that character. Tegan Hitchens, great work as Joyce. Wait, hold on. Kuno was voiced by the cop at the end? You're shitting me. Huh. Yes, some nice voice work overall, just some occasional issues with the sound editing and direction. Like Titus, Elizabeth, they were well done, a lot of incidental characters fit the bill, but there were moments that kind of missed the mark. When a game's close to perfect, it's the little nuisances that stand out, you know? And yeah, overall, I really like this game. It's probably one of the best, certainly one of the most interesting games I've played in the 20 years or so since Deus Ex. Jesus fuck, it's been that long? It's such a unique title. A role-playing game that basically didn't have combat in the usual sense, that was narrowly focused like an adventure game. It also delved into some pretty complex analysis of how people think and why, and the root causes of aberrant behavior. How a guy like Hobocop can talk himself into self-destruction, or obsessive behavior, or extreme political opinions. You got a sense that every character in the game had their own tics and mannerisms, and the writing was so good at conveying people's inner dialogue. Of course, those same things make it tricky to build on for a sequel. The core of the game is whether Harry can keep his shit together as he works the case. The tagline of "What kind of cop are you?" is central to the systems they've built. Anything that uses this system, with this volume of writing, would probably need another protagonist to dig into. Kim would be an obvious choice, but there was even some rumor, I can't remember where I read it, that another story in this universe might focus on a pregnant woman, which would be a hell of a challenge to write for, I'm sure. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to a follow-up that digs into Harry from another angle, but I suspect if this game gets a sequel, it won't be a direct sequel. There's plenty of room to tell other stories in this setting. But even if this is all there is, Disco Elysium has been such a strange and special game, and it got me through some pretty rough patches in 2020. I hope these videos showed why it means so much to me now. For all its politics, it's a deeply personal experience, and for all its darkness, there's a ray of hope buried deep within it. This game matters. Mankind, be vigilant. We loved you. Thanks, guys. You too. One quick thing before I finish. You might have heard about the Final Cut Edition, a free update with new content coming this month. Very excited to try that. I might do a summary video of some of the changes. We'll see how ambitious I'm feeling. But until then, thanks everyone for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Take care, stay safe out there, and remember, we're all gonna make it. I'll see you next time.